Candy. Yeah, Candy. It's time to talk about Candy. What aspect does that mean? Are we talking about like a movie about candy, like the thing you eat? No. About a woman named Candy. It's a 60s sexploitation film, everybody. Is this the first one we're talking about? I don't remember. I love this genre of movie, by the way. I love this kind of stuff. I'm really into just the idea of like finally we're entering a new era of Hollywood. People are like, sex is cool, pretty ladies are cool, hot guys with their shirts off are awesome. Let's just be weird and crazy. And it's funny and silly and we can have fun with it. Sexploitation is cool. It's important. It gets us to new places. It's good to have this dialogue. Barbarella is one of my favorite characters. I freaking love that movie. And in the same year, we had Candy. Yay, Candy, everybody. The worst example of what I'm talking about. Everything I just said about how important it is to talk about stories that feature sex and exploration of sex and nudity and the vulgarity of the world and everything like that. The opposite is said for Candy. This movie's terrible and bad and stupid and ugly and I hate it. I hate this movie. It's rare we talk about a movie I hate so much, but it is sexist, homophobic, and fucking racist to no end. I will tell you details about this film, and I guarantee you are never going to watch this. Please don't watch this. Do not watch this movie. Don't give it any credit. I watched it the other day. It was on my list of films where I'm like, eventually we'll get to these on the channel or just in general. And I had time to kill, and I'm like, I'm in the mood for some really fun, sexy, horny stuff. This one's on the list. Let's talk about it on the channel. Sucks. I hate this movie. It's stupid. This premise is not uncommon to the sexploitation genre. We are following a young woman named Candy. She is open and adventurous and wants to try new things. She goes on a journey after her father gets hurt, and we'll get to it. This young woman is a little freaky, and then men in her life rape her or sexually assault her in some capacity. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I'm going to approach the rest of this video. Just know I hate this. I hate everything this movie is doing. The one saving grace I have for this film is that the young woman, Yua Olin, who is playing our lead, is really good. She is very good as this character. What she is asked to do is not great, but she handles it with the maturity and severity that some contemporaries wouldn't. So I appreciate what she is doing here. But I hate everything about this film. I hate how they handle every single scenario. And it's a comedy. It is a comedy. I'll tell you that now. If there is any interest for you to watch this, this is supposed to be a comedy. It is funny when every single man in this movie sees this young woman, including her uncle, by the way, and is like, boy, what I wouldn't give to have that in my bedroom. I'm using better terms than they use. This is not worth it. And it's not an interesting film, except in the capacity of talking about it in a public forum. If you want something casual to watch, I could maybe provide a better list of sexploitation films. This is not one of them. Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice is a better one. Was it Pretty Maids? All Your Pretty Maids Sitting in a Row, like the Rock Hudson one, is better than this. I hate this movie. But we're going to talk about it. Candy is the lead. She's the only character that appears in every single sequence. This movie opens up with her in school. She's daydreaming about just having fun somewhere. And at the school at this same time, we are introduced to Richard Burton, who is like a rock star poet. Not a rock star. He's a poet. He's won Nobel Prizes for his literature. And he's doing like a talk at the school. It's Richard Burton playing a character called Mac Fisto. And I'm like, that's funny. I love Richard Burton. We've talked about him on the channel before when we talked about Night of the Iguana and Cleopatra. He's one of my favorite actors that's like about to break at every moment. He just looks like Flop Sweat. And I love that for him. And it got me excited about the idea of him in another lifetime actually playing Marvel's Mephisto. I thought that would be a really interesting pick. But him playing Mac Fisto here, this leads into he's giving a speech at the school. He sees Candy. Instant boner for him. He gets her in his limousine to take her home, tries to have sex with her in the vehicle in like a very disturbing scene where the floor is glass and we're looking up at like him ripping her clothes off. And then when she gets home, she's like, well, I guess it's good to like help you out. Not in terms of like having sex with him, but because he like loses control of himself. So they take him into her house. This is where we're introduced to her gardener, Emmanuel, played by Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr plays a Mexican in this movie. That's all we're going to say about it. It turns into Ringo Starr trying to rape her. And her father and uncle and I guess aunt show up and see what he's doing. So they're like, we got to get her out of the country. Exit Ringo Starr and Richard Burton from this movie. Don't worry, there's more actors in this thing. So then we're going to get onto a plane to get her out of like the city away from the person that tried to rape her because everyone thinks it's her because she's a slutty little girl who just wants these things from all these men, right? So they get on a military plane. Her father gets concussed, and they're like being escorted by like the army. And this is where we get Walter Matthau as like an army general who's like, I fucking love my soldiers. These guys are hard and stone cold and ready to fight at any moment. But man, is it so lonely being a man surrounded by men. I just want to look at this young, hot piece of ass. And this scene is bad. First off, her uncle becomes a supporting character. Her uncle is also like, man, I wouldn't mind seeing what's underneath her skirt. Like, what are you talking about, for starters? And then, I guess, like, her uncle's partner is, like, some girl. She's like, I don't know, I'm just going to smoke and, like, be like, oh, girls are so slutty. Like, what is happening? This is not the kind of sexploitation you want to see. This isn't fun. We're not enjoying ourselves. It's very arrogant and gross, okay? Walter Matthau wants to have sex with her. They go to, like, the cockpit, and he's like, I will save your father if you take your clothes off right now. So she's like, okay. Because the idea is she's like a naive young woman. That doesn't work. The troop, like, that's in, like, the airplane or helicopter, they, like, parachute out of there. So Matthau parachutes out of there. So then we go to, like, a hospital to, like, save her dad who's in a coma, which gets to a strange sequence where James Coburn shows up. He's like, I'm a hotshot doctor. Look at, like, the spectacle of everyone watching me perform surgery. This is how I get off. I have hot nurses and people watching me from, like, the voyeuristic, like, roof of, like, this hospital gown, whatever the fuck. And I'm going to save this man's life. How does he save his life? He plugs, like, a fucking socket into his head. And it's like, the brain still works, but I just gotta plug it into the wall. And then he wants to have sex with Candy after, too. Look, I don't know why we're talking about this movie. I genuinely had a bad time with it. I don't like anything we're saying here for the sake of comedy. And in the era that we're seeing this in, the naive girl being coerced by men is handled with more brevity and maturity in other movies. I cited Barbarella earlier. That's about a woman willing to explore these things with people, not just like a naive child thrust into these situations, which is how this is. They want to portray it that Candy is like, you know, the nympho trying to get with everybody, but she's not. She just thinks these things are going to help her father. She's being coerced by these men, and it sucks to see that. That eventually leads to her, like, abandoning this plot line where she's being studied by men. There's, like, a vengefulness that's like, stay away from him. He's mine. This leads to, like, a scene in a bar where she meets, like, a really gropey film director who's like, you're so beautiful and pretty. We're going to go into, like, the back of this bar in the bathroom. I'm going to, like, film you. And then, like, a huge, like, leakage happens and, like, the cops show up to get them out of there. She runs away, losing her clothes. It is an insane mess. I don't understand. Well, that's not true. I understand why this is made. I understand the intention behind all of this because this could be something. You could say something with this type of premise. How men prey on young women just for like their bodies and their beauty. And that could be like something you play into here, but you don't have Candy presenting as anything stronger or smarter than them. She just accepts her current situation and is like, well, I guess this is where I'm at. Now, there is nudity in the film. It's more implied. We don't fully see her nude in like a full like, splash moment. Like, here it is. Here's what we've been waiting for. But you do get to see shots. And they are never in like a tasteful moment. The majority comes from just terrible situations. Other stuff happens. I don't really want to get into it. We have to go back to like the final huge thing that happens here where she meets Grindel, and Grindel is played by Marlon Brando. This is the first time we're talking about Marlon Brando on this channel. If you were to ask me, did I ever think our first Marlon Brando film would be this one? I wouldn't believe you, but here we are. We've done 3 Richard Burton films, but this is our first Brando? Okay. He's in blackface the whole movie. Yeah, he is playing an Indian man, with like the dot on his head, dressed in the garb, but he is being escorted in like the back of like a semi-truck trailer. And it's like his like place of rest and relaxation. And this whole sequence is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It took me a minute to clock it was Brando. I'm like, whatever this is, and regardless of how you feel about it, it doesn't work. It's bad and stupid. I hate this character. And then when you realize it's Brando, you're like, oh shit, this is even worse than I thought. So he's like, you come to my temple, you break all my shit, you ruin the feng shui of everything. I hate you. But then he's like, oh shit, you're like an attractive woman. You're not going to need these clothes. If you're going to stay here, you're not going to need these clothes. And we're going to like hook up and have like a sexual relationship or something. And as like the story progresses with this sequence, it's even more fucked up because he gets really upset with like this woman who's always around him and becomes like a classic chauvinistic male who's like, well, I just want to use you for your body, so I don't really need you for like the spiritual stuff. I'm good without you. You're just an object to me. And it's supposed to be funny. But it's not funny. It's not anything. God, I'm sorry. I am sorry we're talking about this. Like, this should be forgotten to time. And the only reason I want to bring it up is because it's a really good example of how not to do this genre. Because nobody comes out unscathed. Like, it's just racist and malicious and is shock value humor that thinks it's creative and genius. There is no male character that is in support of this woman. They all just want to hurt her. She is not given any agency aside from like the moments where she is given time to talk and just be like, well, I guess that makes sense. And if you call that agency, I call bullshit because I don't think it is agency. And the movie just kind of wraps up with like a 60s psychedelic ending where she's walking through a field seeing all the people in her life that are there or not there. And it's like, hey, well, I guess I'm somebody that people like. That's where it ends. Maybe it's all a dream she's having about like a cool, sexy escapade across like countries and continents to meet all these different types of people. But it is truly a horrendous film and an annoying little piece of cinema. I wish this was anything. And I think we will come back to this genre later with like better examples of it because there are people who can do it, who can do this thing better than what we are talking about here in Candy. But this movie, don't check it out. Just know there is a lot of blackface and brownface and racism in it, and every single male character is like 20 to 30 years older than Candy, and they want to have sex with her without her consent. She is a victim and given few moments of real clarity and agency throughout any of it. I hate it. I hate it. It's not the worst film we've talked about on this channel because there is some cool music and some interesting visual cues, but God, does it make me want to just shoot everybody involved. Like, what are you thinking with this? It's bad. It's Candy. And that is the end of Comedic Tales for this week. Thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one for a better movie, I am hoping. Not sure what it is yet, but have fun, stay safe, good luck.